Welcome to the LPO's virtual town hall with Angela Hill and Scott Harrison.
And we are happy to be here. I think that we need to have conversations like this. We're all suffering through this pandemic. We're struggling to figure out how to go forward, how to survive, and in some cases, how to thrive. And I think the very good news that the LPO brings us today is that we have new leadership on board. And I think Scott Harrison is the man of the hour. No pressure, Scott. Scott Harrison has literally spent his professional life helping orchestras, beginning with the Los Angeles Chamber Orchestra, on to the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, and most recently as the interim executive director of the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra. So you bring a world of help to us, and we are very grateful. And again, no pressure, Scott. I'm sure you don't feel it at all. But I already in our little talks have felt uplifted that we are in this game to win, and we're going to fight to stay alive and thrive. You want to perhaps start by telling us first, I think, a little background. Because your world has been orchestras, how do you perceive the LPO now?
Well, good afternoon, Angela. Thanks for having me. And I just want to say that, yes, there is pressure right now, I think, on all of us because of the creativity and the resourcefulness we're going to need to rise to this moment. But I'm actually really inspired because I've had the chance to little by little meet stakeholders, board members, patron community members, musicians, staff, and I'm just finding so much creativity. I'm finding so much drive. And I think that there's a lot of people working together to make sure we have a strong season ahead. But I think there's a lot to be proud of at the LPO and a lot that really encourages me. First of all, this is a moment when the organizations, I think that you said it well, not only survive, but thrive. I think the organizations that thrive are going to be the ones that have a lot of collaboration and communication happening across groups and silos and parts of the institution. And the LPO, that's what the LPO is and has always been. It is a unique organization because of the amount of collaboration, communication, and shared leadership that exists among musicians and community leaders and staff and everyone who sort of comes into this mix. And so I think in many ways the LPO is well situated because there's going to be flexibility required, there's sacrifice required, there's difficult conversations required to get to that creativity, and we're already set up here to have those conversations. I think we're also well set up because we have, for my money, maybe the best, music director you could have in this moment or any moment, but the wonderfully just vibrant and thoughtful and imaginative Carlos Miguel Prieto. And I've known Carlos for 20 years almost, I think it is. He's a friend. And so for me, it's exciting to work with him, but having that sort of leadership artistically means that there's no limits. There's no, well, we can't do it. It's not the way it was. Let's just throw in the towel. It's okay. The world's throwing us a curveball. Let's figure out how to adjust our stance and get ready to hit that one out of the park. So I just see a lot of things at the LPO that make me excited and make me feel like this organization is situated, this orchestra is situated, and heck, this community is situated. What community in America other than the New Orleans knows how to deal with a pandemic, to deal with catastrophe, to deal with uncertainty? This is what you do in New Orleans. And so all the ingredients are here in the DNA. And I think we're going to find a way to be successful and thoughtful and have meaning that we can deliver to the community this season.
You brought up Carlos Prieto. I was saying that the very good news is that we are so fortunate that we have all of our musicians here. We still have our beloved Carlos Prieto. They are all gifts I have felt for decades in this community. That's what the LPO is. But we have struggled financially even before the pandemic. And now we're not going to have, at this point, we don't think we're going to have audience members in a theater, correct?
Correct, not in the beginning, correct.
Right, but we're going to be doing performances. And I guess many people are wondering, how can we make money from those virtual performances so that we can keep our beloved musicians?
Well, there's a bit of good news for orchestras as compared to other performing arts entities. I would say it's a little bit tougher for some other entities that the underlying foundation is different, but an orchestra is already in this world, and the LPO is similar in this sense. So much of our revenue streams already are philanthropic. At least at most orchestras, at least 50% or not more of the revenue comes from contributing income. It comes from the very generous people who are listening to this stream, who believe in this orchestra, who reach deep into their pockets and make a gift because they believe in what we mean to this community and the impact we have. And so that's the good news, is that much of that income is not necessarily directly tied to the concerts. It doesn't mean the concert income isn't important. It is, and it will be painful to lose that. And we have to be really strategic and thoughtful in how we adjust and streamline. And there will be some downsizing of our budget this year in order to make everything meet. But what I fervently believe, and this is actually being demonstrated around the country, what I fervently believe is, if we still are doing work that makes a difference in this community, if we're still delivering music, if we're still reaching young people, if we're still involved in education and engagement, if we're still involved in making a fairer and more equitable and more open and welcoming New Orleans, then we have legs on which to stand, for which we can fundraise and make that case to the community that the support still makes a difference and the support should still be there. And so I think that we're going to continue to raise a lot of money because people are going to continue to believe in the LPO and what we do. Peer organizations, I've been talking to and looking at a lot of them, and there's a little bit of a truism right now, which is that the organizations that are still engaging in fundraising are raising funds. The organizations that are preemptively saying we've got to shut it down are not raising funds, which makes sense. But the good part of it is that if there's a compelling case to make, and if organizations are thoughtful in going to their community, the funds are coming through. Now, I do just want to say in a minute, I know we're going to get more into talking about some of the ideas we have for how this year is going to look. We are going to have concert content of a type. Much of it will be virtual. Some of it will be socially distanced over time. So there will be activity to engage with our subscribers, to give people a reason to subscribe and be members this year, and to experience and engage musical content in a concert or concert-like format in return for that subscription. So some of that will still be very possible. But at the end of the day, like it's always been, our job is to really show why we're part of this community, how we strengthen it, how we make it more vibrant, the economic benefit we have on this community, and then turn it into a really thoughtful and successful fundraising campaign.
You know, it's interesting, you're talking about the economic impact of our beautiful music. It really is a very vital part of our New Orleans. The Brookings Institute came out with a study yesterday. I don't know if you saw that, and I'm sorry, I'm throwing it at you. And it was very, very interesting, and it's by two authors, and they did a study from April to the end of July. And what they were saying is, looking at, they called it the measuring COVID-19's devastating impact on America's creative economy.
Mm-hmm.
They broke the creative economy down, and where we are, which is theater, music, live, etc., they feel is going to be hit the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
Understandable. But they also said, and I underlined this because I thought this is important for people to hear, that arts, culture, and creativity are one of the three key sectors, along with science and technology and business and management, that drive regional economies. That is why it's so important that people think, gee, we're going through a difficult time. Why do we need a symphony? We need it for many reasons. We are, as you have told me, a big influence on the economy, not just of New Orleans, but of Louisiana.
Yeah. I'm so glad, Angela, that you're sharing that report. And I'm a little biased, of course, but I do think that objectively the data is there to demonstrate the impact that the arts and creative and cultural sector has. And in the state of New Orleans, I was looking at the data from Americans for the Arts, 5.9 billion with a B. The arts and creative sector in Louisiana contributes $5.9 billion in economic activity each year. I don't know the exact breakdown in New Orleans, but I know nationally that arts and culture is a larger sector than agriculture, and it's a larger sector than transportation, which people are really astonished when they hear. the truth is we are big business too. It happens a little bit of a different way. So one of the things that I think people can take comfort in is when they support the LPO and when they help strengthen us, we in return strengthen the community, because every dollar that's spent on the LPO has a magnifier effect on this community. And as we're thinking about, I mean, we were talking, Angela, earlier about the unfortunate news in New Orleans about restaurant layoffs that were on the front page of The Advocate. And, you know, as we're thinking about how does the restaurant sector come back? How does the nightlife sector come back? Everything from parking lots to dry cleaning to all sorts of retail sectors you can think of, they have a stake in a strong arts and cultural environment. So if the LPO comes back strong, if the opera comes back strong, if the ballet comes back strong, if jazz and heritage comes back strong, down and down the line, it's not only about us being strong, it's about the economy in this region being strong. And so, you know, to me, I just think this role that we play is so important, and we shouldn't be shy about talking about it, because we have a important role to play in the reactivation and the resurgence that we're going to want to see in New Orleans and in Louisiana as, you know, as we come out, hopefully in the not too much more distant future, of the sort of shutdown phase and return to a more normal sort of economic and civic life.
Absolutely. And I do want to get to what you're envisioning the season to be, but I want to stick a little bit on what we're talking about with the impact of it. I think heaven knows we love our Saints and we love our basketball, and we want them to survive. I think some people are concerned that if we drop the ball, symphony, opera, ballet, we will never come back. And I look at that as a loss.
Mm-hmm.
Two, if not more, than football. Slap my face. But I mean that. I think that looking at the arts, that void, if we didn't have that, we would not be New Orleans.
Yeah. Well, there's also, frankly, research I've seen that talks about the impact of arts and culture versus sports. And because arts and culture often stays much more in the local economy, it can actually have a bigger impact than sports. So in the popular imagination, sports is often seen as much more of a money generator because of the headlines about athletes' salaries and the things that sort of capture our imagination. But I mean, the truth is, I hope it's all strong. I want the Saints to be strong, and I want them to win the Super Bowl. I want the Pelicans, you know, to make a run. I know the NBA is already getting up to its first round of the playoffs. I don't know how the Pelicans are sticking in it, but oh, okay. So I mean, I want it all to be strong, but yeah, I think you make a great point, Angela. If there's an idea out there that, well, why don't we just shut it down and come back when things are okay? I think many of us know that it is very easy to shut something down. It is very difficult to build something up. And again, the music community in New Orleans has been through this. The orchestral community in New Orleans has been through this. The LPO exists because of an organization that had to shut down. And I think anyone would say the path back, although we built something beautiful, was far from easy and took a very long time to get to that level that people really wanted to. So again, this community knows that. So in my mind, shutting down doesn't seem like an option, because yeah, once you shut down, it's very easy to stay dark and to wait and to never come back. So I hope that we have no plans to shut down here. I hope the opera doesn't shut down. I hope the ballet doesn't shut down. I hope the great museums don't shut down. They find ways to stay active. I hope every arts organization and every musical form in this city stays active. And you know, one of the things that is heartening at a national level is the Save Our Stages campaign, which maybe some of you have seen. It has bipartisan sponsorship. It has two people you would never expect to see their names together, Senator John Cornyn from Texas and Senator Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota. They teamed up to co-sponsor the Save Our Stages Act, and it is, I believe, $12 billion in economic relief for music presentation venues. Everything as small as a hole in the wall that presents, you know, the latest indie rock band in the corner of Frenchman Street, to the Sanger Theater and everything in between. But it's about providing economic support to music presentation stages, small to large, because of the recognition that there's such drivers in the economic and civic and cultural life of their cities. So I think a lot of people are realizing this, and our job is to be a part of that and to support all these efforts, even the ones that aren't about us directly, because a rising tide lifts all ships, and we want to be good citizens in the cultural environment of New Orleans, but then also make the case for why we have something to offer too, and why, Jim Atwood, who many of you know, said it well the other day, but he said, we have to think about it, said it this morning. He said, we have to think about every decision we make this year should not only be about this year, it should be about the next 5 years, the next 10 years. It should be about knowing that we're setting up things to be strong and sustainable for years to come. And that's the attitude I'm trying to bring to everything I do with the organization.
No, that is absolutely perfect. And very important what you're talking about, the federal level, because in this Brookings Institute study, their sort of bottom line is we can all start ground up, individual communities trying to do what we're doing, but it is going to take a much broader base of support, whether it be local governments, municipal governments, certainly federal governments. Yes, the philanthropy arm has to exist, and the corporate arm. So this may be a moment of reckoning for all the arts, and in a healthy way. We may be saying, we value this in our lives. How can we keep it healthy? Not just for this year, but as Jim is saying, for the next 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and Angela, you could speak to this as well as I'm sure anyone on this call could, but I think really, particularly in March and April, when things started shutting down and there was that first void, I think there was that sort of that recognition of absence, like absence makes the heart grow fonder. Like this, once it was gone, we realized how important it was and how we can't take these things for granted. Like we need arts and culture. And in fact, there's a really brilliant guy and an amazing musician. His name is Vijay Gupta, and he was a violinist for many years in the other LA Phil, the Los Angeles Philharmonic. And he won a MacArthur Genius Grant because he started an organization called Street Symphony that works with populations experiencing homelessness to create musical experiences and opportunities. And all his friends in the other LA Phil in Los Angeles and great musicians all over that city, like their favorite activity to do is to work with VJ and Street Symphony, to be there working with people who are experiencing such trauma and loss, but to see the beauty in their lives and help them sort of refine their voices through music. It's the most amazing thing. I say all that to say that Americans for the Arts at their national conference, it was on virtually a few months ago, VJ was the keynote speaker and performer. And VJ talked about this idea called the next response. And the idea of the next response is there's the first response. And the first response is critical. You've got safety, security, infrastructure, food, medical, all these issues, our healthcare workers, our firefighters and policemen, everyone who is out there doing the first response. But there's something that has to happen next in a community after there's been something catastrophic, and that's a next response. And artists actually have a role in the next response because we start to heal the soul. We start to help people understand how they connect to each other again. We create the sense of shared understanding and humanity that makes us want to help each other and find a collaborative, community-based solution to what we're facing. We sort of help everyone understand how we're all in this together. So this idea of the next response and the role we play in it is absolutely critical. And so hat tip to Vijay for those ideas and those thoughts that he's pursued in his career for so long. But I've heard the stories here in Louisiana that after Katrina, like the way that the LPO just figured out how to move into this community in a different way and be of service, and the response that was felt when, as I understand it, 7,000 or 8,000 people, I think, showed up at one of the first concerts back that was held, I believe it might have been outdoors, and this mutual feeling of the symphony wanted to be here, like wanted to give. The symphony's thought was giving, like how do we give? And in return, the community said, how do we show up and be part of this too? So I think we can hopefully recreate that spirit and that feeling again and just be part of this next response.
The outdoor concerts, which are free to people, we get sponsors, but they're free to people, are truly one of the great moments, I always say, of the year for Louisiana. It's always before Jazz Fest, but people bring their dogs, their children, their wine. It is such a community.
Yeah.
We could capture that during this time. I don't know how with social distancing, but it is a feeling of that symphony is ours. The
Yes.
musicians have got to feel this community is ours.
Yeah.
Just do something relatively soon on that level.
Yeah, I love that idea. I mean, if there's any, I mean, in essence, there's different ways to talk about a symphony. And one of the things that is not technically true, but that gets said in the press about the LPO sometimes is it's described as musician owned. And it's not technically musician owned. It is collaboratively governed with this amazing leadership role from our musicians. But the truth is the owners of the symphony are the community. That's who the symphony belongs to. It belongs to the people. And this organization, like any arts organization or any nonprofit, exists to serve that group of people. And so this idea that we want everyone in New Orleans to feel ownership, we want everyone to feel like they belong here, we want everyone to be welcome here. We want, a friend of mine the other day used a beautiful word. He said, used the word affirmation. We want everyone to feel affirmed in who they are when they show up at the symphony, whether they are showing up in person or showing up for a digital activity we might create. But it's the community who owns this organization. And so we do this work because it's our responsibility to be there for that community and to provide to our owners, our real shareholders, the community, the public, what it is that they're craving from this organization.
I want to ask you, getting down to sort of technical things, it is about raising money, and you are an expert. We've just made you that expert. How do we, during these difficult times, address that? Because we're going to have to ask. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple things. I think, first of all, there's a level of honesty required. I think that we want to be transparent, that we don't have all the answers, that we are still ourselves figuring some things out, that there's going to be some rocky roads. And so a level of grace and understanding will be required from our donors. And so that's a first step, is that honesty. And that integrity of the ask, I would say. So it's really rooted in what the context and the situation is. But the second thing is the space for optimism. After the honesty comes the optimism. After the storm comes the sun. Is it sunny yet out there? But we want to then express that sense of optimism and talk about what we are starting to do and put in place, why we do believe it's going to make a difference, and how it's going to build for the long term. And to, again, channel Jim from earlier this morning, how everything we do right now is not just about the here and now, it's about a long-term view. So letting people know that that investment, that donation they make to the symphony is actually a long-term investment in this organization being strong for many years. So I think that's the second part. So it's honesty, there's optimism, and then I think there's this sense of impact or difference. And be really clear that because this is true, this is 100% true. We're not raising money to pay bills, though like any organization we have to pay bills. We're not raising money to pay salaries, though like any organization we have to pay salaries. Those are the things we have to do from a business perspective, to have employees, to have vendors, to do the things we have to do. But the reason we raise money is because we have something to offer, and it makes a difference in this community. And that's what we're going to talk about, because that is the 100% truth. We're raising money so that we can do X, so that we can accomplish Y, so that people can participate in the organization. And of course, the way we do that is by paying our bills, by paying our salaries, by running a good business. But that's not the end of the story. That's just the mechanism for which we achieve the impact and make the difference. So we're going to be honest, we're going to be optimistic, and we're going to talk about the difference we're going to make and the impact we're going to have. And I hope that will speak to people. And I think the other thing is that I'll add, sort of, if that's the sort of the process, for me, it's really important to just have a lot of humility and a lot of understanding and realize that everyone's going to be in a different place. And if this is a year that is difficult for someone, we understand, and we're not going to let go of anyone who cares about the symphony. If someone is not in a place to be able to be supportive this year because of their personal situation, we're going to understand that. I mean, we know what it's like to be in a tough place with your finances, and we, as an organization, had to rely on people's grace in the past as well. So if someone's in a tough place this year, we're going to understand that and support them and consider them as much of the family as ever. We're not going to give up or go away on anybody. And the people who are in a place to be supportive and who do still have that capacity, we're going to hope that they're going to still very much be there. So we're going to have that understanding and that humility and that grace back to our audience to know that you're part of this community, regardless of your individual circumstances here. And for those who have the capacity, because some people's economics are in good shape, some people's personal economics are doing better right now, depending on the field that they might be in. Some people's personal economics are much more difficult and strained right now. wherever you are, you're part of this organization, you're part of this community. We're going to stick with you. And we're going to hope that to the extent that you can, you're going to stick with us.
I think that we need, and I've said this for many years on the board, to better tell the story of not just the performances we give, but the many, many things these dynamic musicians, 67 musicians, do to teach, to go into schools, to show little kids, big kids, what classical music is about, what the instruments are about, the soul strings. We go so far beyond just doing magnificent performances.
Yeah, we've had two really great, well, we've had a lot, but we've had two in particular great conversations in the office about two programs in particular. One you just mentioned, Soul Strings. The other one is Music for Life. And both of those programs in our minds are so poised to be more vibrant and more active this year. One, because a lot of it can happen virtually. It's not ideal, but it can happen and still make a difference, still have an impact. Also, a lot of it can happen in a safer, socially distant context because you can set up a much smaller environment where there's only a handful of people. But the thing we realize is Soul Strings. So for those who don't know, Soul Strings is a program where we deliver music to in various medical communities. So we work with patients at hospitals. We work with people who are struggling with various medical conditions. Some of them are young, some of them are older, and we deliver the joy and the power and the healing ability of music to help make a difference in their lives. And we do it in partnership with a certified and trained music therapist. So it's actually clinical, and so it is rigorous. And so we work with these different, I know Ochsner Healthcare is one of the partners we work with. We work with these partners and we develop these sort of modules, these pods where people go in, our musicians go in and work with the medical communities, work with the patients, the healthcare workers themselves benefit from the process because they're experiencing, enjoying. So it's this great program. But what we said to ourselves is, in a year like this, how deep could we go with Soul Strings? Think of all the people who need the healing power of music right now. Not only physical health, mental health, psychological health, just a sense of community health. So we're planning right now and thinking about how deep can we go with Soul Strings in a year like this with an infrastructure and a track record that is already set up for success. On the other token, I mentioned Music for Life, which is about working with young people. It's our version of music training for young people who might not otherwise have access. And it's called Music for Life because it's about hopefully setting them up to have a lifetime that is involved in music. But we also said, wait a second, Music for Life can actually be about the entire life cycle. And we know in our community, there's a lot of adult amateur musicians who would love to pick up their instrument and brush it off and dust it off. And so again, in an era where not everyone can come to a concert hall, but an LPO violinist can get on a Zoom call with a virtual adult amateur violinist in the audience and have a lesson or play a duet or whatever it might be and have that moment of connection. I'm reminded of what I heard someone say at another orchestra where they said, music is not only about concerts, music is about connections and it's about the community you form. And so Soul Strings, Music for Life, we think these programs are poised to be even more of the moment and even more impactful than they've ever been before.
See, I'm uplifted already. You make me feel better already. A little bit of, not to be down because we are looking very optimistically, but kind of where do we begin?
Yeah.
How do we start?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the last few weeks particular have been about some of those very difficult processes. I mean, we've had to comb through the budget. And so all this work is going on behind the scenes. We want to give everyone confidence that there is a prudence and a diligence and a forensic sort of approach to understanding what our budgets have been and what they can be in a year like this. So we've been going through the budget little by little. And actually, we took an approach to the budget. I mean, not to get too, business speaky, but for those who might be interested, we took an approach to the budget where we actually started by talking about the budget from a narrative perspective. We said, what are the goals? Because it's actually easy, but it's often misleading to just start cutting and shifting and arranging numbers. We said, wait a second, at the end of the day, if we have to streamline our budget, what are the non-negotiables? I don't mean just paying the rent. I mean, what are the non-negotiables in terms of what we want to offer the community this year? And we talked about some of those things. Then we started to figure out, okay, well, then what does that mean in terms of what can stay in the budget and what can go? And so we've been taking things in, putting things out. We've been talking to a lot of partners and vendors and contractors in town that we work with for production and for other things to understand what can work, what can't work. We've been doing a lot of study of safety protocols for musicians and audience members. So we're reviewing studies, we're looking at materials, understanding what our safety guidelines will be for a healthy and safe workplace. And for when we do have audiences, a healthy and safe gathering place for audiences. So we're doing all that sort of work. And what we're doing right now is we're putting that all together into a budget. And so we have a budget that we're going to be reviewing at the highest levels of the organization with our whole board very quickly. It's going to be streamlined like any other organization this year, but we think it's going to be streamlined smartly and strategically. And within it, it's going to preserve the ability to do things like Music for Life, like Soul Strings, like a few things we'll talk about soon in terms of performance content to really make a difference. But and it requires sacrifice. I mean, there's positions that have to be held vacant. There's some adjusting of salary levels that have to be done. I mean, I don't want anyone who's supporting the organization to think that we're not also tightening the belt, because we are, but we're tightening the belt in a smart way. And maybe not even tightening the belt is the right phrase. I think we have a little bit of a smaller plate than usual, but we can still have some dessert on the plate. So we're deciding how much dessert can we have, how much vegetables do we need, how much protein do we need, and keeping it all in that slightly smaller plate we have to work with this year.
No, and that's very encouraging to know that you're looking at it strategically. That is the word. And the fact that even though the musicians may have to take some salary cuts, they're here and we're not going to lose them. And again, I talk about the ripple effect of those musicians and how they teach independently of what a loss to this community it would be.
Yeah.
So everything we can do to keep these musicians going, we need to do. And also we have a very good staff, very small, but very good, lean and mean, and they're getting it done.
I was joking in some sense, we've already made the cuts because our staff is very lean to begin with. There's not a lot of fat at the LPO. I mean, and I think anyone who loves the organization knows we know how to work resourcefully. We know how to work on a lean budget. I mean, we know how to make the most of what we have. So these are skills that we already have within us. But I just want to second what you said about the impact and the importance of our musicians and what they mean to this community. I mean, and hopefully, I think a community like New Orleans knows this better than most cities because this is a city of musicians. We know what all the musicians in this city mean. The orchestra musicians, the jazz musicians, the rock musicians, every type of musician in this city, up and down Bourbon Street, and into the Orpheum and the Mahalia Jackson and beyond, they all matter. But our 67 musicians in the LPO do so much in this community. They are so engaged as teachers, as mentors, as educators, as performers, and they help drive the life and the blood of this city. And so we want to make sure that we're always cognizant of the fact that they give a lot to make this organization work, and that we all sort of come together to make it happen.
And again, I feel your sense of drive and purpose, but what if you could say something that concerns you, what would it be?
You know, my concerns are the uncertainty. I mean, we never know when this could get worse. We never know if, there's been talk about, I've seen editorials that talk about if we really want to nip this in the bud, for example, we need a total lockdown of 8 weeks. And I don't just mean here in New Orleans, I mean in the country. And so if at some point that happens, or that becomes a need, or that becomes a reality, that's going to be a big shift to accommodate. So how do we know those things? How much time will we have to know those things? That really concerns me. I think what concerns me also is the balance point is what is the exact right moment between optimism and prudence. I don't know if those are necessarily the opposites of each other, but optimism and being more conservative in your outlook. Where do we actually dice this? Because there needs to be a little bit of everything. There needs to be some tightening, there needs to be some control, but there needs to be some flourishing. And it's hard to know exactly where to draw that line and which elements should flourish and which elements should be held back a little bit. Those are the kind of things that concern me. And I'm concerned about urgency. I mean, for me, it's like, I mean, in general, it's a race every year. Like any business, I mean, you're always thinking about ins and outs. You know, I know that we have a very good plan being built. I know that we're going to compel and appeal to donors who want to support us. I know that in the end, on June 30th, which is when our fiscal year ends, when our season ends, I know we can be in very good shape. But I also know that the next 4 to 8 to 12 weeks are very difficult as we roll it back up. And you're always a little bit worried, like, is one part going to get too far ahead of another? And so, you know, are we going to, the whole thing might make sense on paper, but if we are still in the planning mode and haven't been able to go out and solicit the support we need, are we going to find ourselves a little bit behind the ball? Because even though we know in the end we'll have the money we need, the truth is the bills are due on this day here. And does the money come in time for the bills we have to pay? So again, I don't want to make anyone's worries our worries internally. But you know, that is why the other thing that I also think a lot about when we think about fundraising, we think about philanthropy, is that the other part of it is a thoughtful persistence. And there has to be willingness on the part of those of us who raise the money to be out there early. It's like Mayor Daley said, vote early, vote often. You know, the first Mayor Daley in Chicago in the 60s. But you know, it's like we need to fundraise early and fundraise often, because it's not just about the commitments being made. It's that we do need to have those commitments made earlier rather than later, and have that cash flowing earlier rather than later, because that gives us runway, that gives us momentum, that gives us confidence, that gives us the breathing room to do all the great things we have in mind.
We have taken advantage of the government loans.
Mm-hmm.
Loans. We're all on deck with that. Yep.
Yes, we have.
Very, very good. And while we are doing this belt tightening and looking at things strategically, you're still planning a season. So you want to talk a little bit about what is it going to look like?
Yes.
In a perfect world, in a perfect pandemic world.
In a perfect pandemic world. I love it. Well, we shared a few details. We started to strategically leak a few details in the email that went out this week to subscribers. And in the coming weeks, we're going to share more, because we know more and more about what will be possible. And we are envisioning that our performance activity, our series, so to speak, will consist of 3, and they will be as follows. And I will go, I will name them and then I will explain them in reverse. But the 3 are going to be the Orpheum Sessions, Sweet Sundays, and Music at the Museum. And by the way, like anything else in this world, if the titles change a little bit between now and when we launch it, you know, we might still be workshopping them, but I'll bring you guys all in on an early stage.
That's exciting. Just hearing that.
Yeah. So Sweet Sundays and Music at the Museums will be chamber music, chamber ensemble based. For those who don't know, chamber music is when you have, you know, between 2 and 8 players. It's a duet, a trio, a quartet. It's a great intimate experience. It's very visceral. You know, if anyone's in a garage band or in a jazz quintet, that's a type of chamber music too, by the way. It's just amplified. But so we're going to have these 2 chamber music programs, Sweet Sunday and Music at the Museums. And Sweet Sunday will exist digitally, and they will be shot and broadcast, and they will be kind of like a format like this, where there'll be a live element of sort of chatting and bringing audience together and having community. And they will exist as sort of a digital offering. And our musicians are wildly creative and have all sorts of interesting things they do. And, you know, you'll see things from Mozart to Marsalis and everything in between. And that's going to be Sweet Sundays. Music at the Museums is, we have actually been in the middle of a lot of conversations with a number of the museums in town that have outdoor spaces. And so there are some spaces that are already safe for some very small audiences. I'm talking literally, these might be audiences of 10 or 15 people, but we are going to have a series as well of chamber music. So you're talking 3, 4, 5, 6 musicians in the beginning, maybe 10, 15, 20 audience members. And we're going to have these, and we're going to space them out in a way, and we're going to go to our subscribers, and folks are going to have an option to, and unfortunately, I know a lot of people would want to come to all of them, but that's not going to be possible. We're going to make sure everyone gets to hopefully come to at least one of them. And then as we're able to increase the audiences over time, we can let more people back in. So we will have some live music gathering with some very strict protocols about safety for both audience and musicians. We'll have digital. So whether your comfort level is coming for something that's small and live, Think of it similar to those of you who are comfortable dining at a patio right now. It will kind of be our equivalent of dining outside on a patio at a favorite restaurant. So we'll have the live option for those who love that. And for those who are just comfortable with the Grubhub or the delivery service, we'll have the delivery option via the Sweet Sundays. But the sort of the main course, so to speak, will be the Orpheum sessions. And we are planning right now for orchestral concerts that will have ensembles of about 25 to 30 musicians, which, based on the city protocols and based on our own research and based on how we can set things up at the Orpheum, we can safely create that experience of 25 to 30 musicians. We are going to be working with some very high quality, fantastic video folks in town, and we will be taping and then via the internet, via what we call video on demand, broadcasting those concerts on a set schedule for people to watch at their leisure. It'll kind of be like Netflix. So when you're a subscriber, you'll be getting, we're talking about it will likely be something like an every other week schedule when the new one is released, and it will most likely be on Fridays so we can TGIF, have something to look forward to for the weekends. But I think our subscribers will be able to expect that every other weekend they will be receiving a link for their next concert to watch and enjoy at their leisure. And to know that they know the music's going to be great. Anyone who loves this orchestra knows this is an amazing orchestra who plays at an incredibly high level, but the audio and the video quality will be really great too. So you'll really enjoy watching it and feel like this is something worth your time. And it's not the same as the live thing, but it will still be something special and meaningful. And so that's what we're envisioning right now. Our sort of latter hope is that over time, as protocols allow, we might at some point be able to welcome some small audiences into the recording sessions for the Orpheum sessions. So some people can actually come in and watch those being put together, but that's going to wait a little bit until we really feel that from a city and from our perspective, the regulations and our capacity are such that we can do that safely. Because we've got a lot, obviously, responsibility on our shoulders to not only provide great music, but to look out for the health, safety, and welfare of our musicians, our employees, and our audiences.
Let me ask you, just as wild thought, if there were, not for an audience, but for the full orchestra to play outside, socially distanced, and that's a lot of players, but socially safe, is that ever a thought?
Yes, we actually are looking at that too. I didn't mention yet because that's going to take a little longer to plan and come together, and there are more logistical hurdles around that. But it is our hope that there will be a point this season where there can be some live outdoor activity. There's a few models that could possibly be used. There are models that are based on a drive-in where you actually show up in your car, a little throwback feel. There are, of course, models based on using some sort of large sports football stadium or whatnot. There are models using parks. There are models that are actually more about like the ensemble moves and goes to different pods where people are set up more distant and more safely. But anyway, in any event, we also would like to and hope that at some point this season, there can be some outdoor experiences where the full orchestra or almost full orchestra can be together in a safe way. So, what we're doing is we are both planning a baseline of activity that's going to exist, and then we're preparing for some of the scenarios we can move into if the situation opens up in such a way that can happen. So we're going to be prepared for, at minimum, doing X and having some ideas in our back pocket with some of the work already done. So if we get word and feel the comfort in doing Y or Z, we can create Y or Z on a fairly quick turnaround.
I tell you, the bottom line of what I'm hearing is one, we are working, we are doing things, we are living, we are breathing symphony.
Yeah.
And we are carrying on. And I think that is the most important message of all.
Yes.
The scenarios you're talking about are all exciting, but the idea that we are here and we are going to fight to stay here, that's the message.
To paraphrase Winston Churchill, instead of keeping calm and carrying on, we will keep safe and carry on.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. This has been delightful. It really has. And we truly welcome you to New Orleans.
Thank you, Angela. I feel so embraced.
Good. This is an easy town because people are wonderful. They're warm. They will embrace you, your wife, your child. You will enjoy living here, even if it's hot. If we're in a pandemic, this is still a very special place. And we appreciate you taking on this job at this time. We need your help.
Well, thank you, Angela. You know, my wife's name is Angela, so that's why I feel such a simpatico with you and why I think we get along so easily and so well. But I'm just feeling so welcomed. I am meeting people, you know, day by day. Most of it is virtually, but that's a starting point, and I hope that soon it will be in person with even more folks. But I'm feeling that hospitality. I'm feeling that warmth in more ways than one, literally and figuratively. And I'm honored and humbled because I know that there is a long, proud tradition. I mean, this is right. This is the first city in America to have an opera house.
That's
So,
right.
I mean, the tradition of orchestral and operatic music is very deep in the roots of this city. So it is a real responsibility to be given a leadership role in shepherding and stewarding some small portion of a 300, 400-year history of music. So I'm taking it very seriously, but I'm looking to have a lot of fun too, because we always have fun in New Orleans. And just thank you for having me. And I just want to let everyone out there watching know that I'm looking forward to meeting you when we can. I'm available. I'd love to connect with you, and please don't be strangers. Let's get to know each other.
I think that's wonderful. And I hope anybody out there listening or knows somebody out there that wants to become involved and help us during this time, call that LPO office.
Yes,
Yeah, absolutely.
exactly.
Thank you so much, Scott. We're cheering you on. And I think you're going to see a lot of help, a lot of affection and for this organization because it is important. But thank you
Yes.
very much.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Angela.
You're very welcome. To everybody who's been watching, thank you very much. And again, anytime you want to help, you just give us a call. Y'all have a wonderful day.